Hello, it's your gourmet cave woman. So here I am with my long overdue video on how to make potassium broth. And as you can see, here is my variety of vegetables. Now, one of the things about potassium broth is you don't need to be absolutely specific about what you put in it. My version is maybe different than other people's versions, but I think that this will be a phenomenal potassium broth. So what I would like to really tell you is to give you a little bit of a history. Potassium broth was really originally created by Hippocrates, the father of medicine. And then it became very popular in the 30s, in the 20s, 30s, Professor Ehret. But Dr. Gerson, he was the one who really promoted it a lot through his Gerson Institute. So it was used for people with cancer. But Hippocrates is considered the father of modern medicine because of his attempt to find the scientific method to discover that food is medicine. So over the years, it was very successfully used by other doctors. There was another doctor, he was Ambroise Pare. He was a French doctor, I think, a father of surgery and modern forensic pathology. But Max Gerson, he was very famous for the potassium broth. Now, it's also called alkalinizing broth. And what it does, it really balances the acidic pH level in the body. Like most of us are very acidic, and if we have a glass or a cup or a mug of potassium broth every day, I like to also have bone broth, chicken or beef, grass-fed, to alternate. It's wonderful for inflammation, balancing your pH levels, and so on. So potassium broth is also used for people who are sick with the flu, or you feel like you're getting the flu, so it's an immune booster too. So I'll get back to you in a moment. I'm just going to introduce you to all of these various vegetables that I'm using. And some potassium broths are made with just peels of the vegetables, but I'm using the entire vegetable with the peel on. So now the first thing I want to point out is that the carrots, always cut the top off because it will give a bitter taste to the broth. So I've cut all the tops off my carrots. I'm using leeks and onions and one beet, and I'm using red potatoes instead of potatoes with the white skin. I'm using a lot of celery. I'm using parsley, which I'm going to put in at the end. I'm using a rutabaga. Root vegetables are full of minerals. I'm using a parsnip, and I'm also using this other one, which is a celeriac root. And I'm using a lemon with the skin on. I'm using a hot pepper. Then I'm using kombu, which is a seaweed from the Pacific, and that is extremely high in minerals. And I'm using thyme. I'm using bay leaf, black peppercorns, and I love using miso because miso has a lot of minerals and vitamins. It's loaded. It's a superfood really for seasoning. And I'm also going to use ginger. I would normally also use turmeric. Unfortunately, I don't have any turmeric. So I'm just going to get this all ready, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Okay, so I'm back. I've got everything in my pot. As you can see, it's a pretty big stock pot. You can use an Instapot. You can use a slow cooker. There are different things, but we're not able to do that today because I only really have this. And this works very well. You don't have to cook it 24 hours. It's not like a bone broth. So I'm going to put the parsley in near the end, the last hour. And the other thing I just want to explain to you is that The potassium broth leads to alkalinization. And the idea is that you have optimal health when you have a balanced pH. So that's really one of the big things that potassium broth does. And the pH is a term that measures acidity versus alkalinity. And as I said before, most of us, because of too much sugar, carbs, meat, stress, etc. in our lifestyle, we become much more acidic, and it leads to inflammation, it leads to arthritis, joint pains, constipation. So potassium broth is not expensive to make, and it doesn't take a lot of work. And so what I'd like to do now is I'm going to fill it up with cold water. You can use spring water if you like, but we have a source of really clean water, so it's nothing to really be too concerned about. And then I'll get it on the stove, bring it to a boil, and then I will leave it covered for a couple of hours, and then I will uncover it. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you the finished product because of the way this video on my phone works. But basically, I'm going to then at the end strain everything so that my broth is nice and clear. And I'm going to have enough broth here for myself and my daughter, for many days. It's going to be quite a lot. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, if you're new to my channel, please press the subscribe button and the like button. And I look forward to coming back to you with a chicken broth recipe, which is going to be made from necks and backs and chicken feet. And it's also a fantastic broth that you can alternate, actually, having chicken broth, beef broth, potassium broth. Like, you can actually do a fast with juices, then some broth, either potassium broth, and then you can do some chicken broth. Like, you can really do a couple of days of just fasting with juice and broth alternating. It's a very healthy thing to do. It's highly detoxifying. And I'm really a big fan of broths. And so I hope that you try one yourself. And remember what I always say, be creative. Don't get stuck in the box. You don't have to follow a recipe. I never do. I always like to experiment and improve my recipes, add things that I prefer, eliminate things that I don't prefer or I don't like as much. So that's basically it. So potassium broth has a very long history going right back to Hippocrates. And of course, Max Gerson, who was a wonderful doctor, he really brought it into the mainstream. So all the best and have a wonderful evening, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.